Your other game here, AC Milan 0, Tottenham 0. AC Milan go through 1-0 on aggregate. So, of course, right after all that PSG discussion, now we got to have a conversation about Spurs' future. Before I get into that, though, I want to begin by giving AC Milan their credit and going back to something I've talked about before, which is at some point Serie A needed to show up in the Champions League. Because the Inter, particularly the two Milan clubs, win Serie A and then just kind of exit without making a real splash in the Champions League. You weren't seeing any deep runs outside of, the one Roma had that was a Cinderella story. And, of course, you had Juventus, but Juventus is not Juventus at this point. And are facing an uncertain future with the sanctions and all that. The best teams in your league need to show up in this competition. Inter are in a good spot. AC Milan are now through. And Napoli are doing Napoli things. This is terrific for Serie A. This was the season that needed to happen, and you've got the teams that needed to deliver delivering. And it's not like Inter and AC Milan have been great this season. They have been up and down, inconsistent, bad losses. I would argue neither of them are one of the 8 best teams in the world. But here they are, into or knocking on the door of the Champions League quarterfinals. On the Spurs side, this 3-game stretch. You put out a rotated squad in the FA Cup, the trophy you have the best chance of winning, to keep your guys rested for that Wolves game and for this game. You don't score in any of them. You get knocked out of both competitions. And now, I was just kind of curious, so I've looked. Take it with a grain of salt, but 538 is giving them a 26% chance of making the Champions League. Because not only are Liverpool right there, Brighton have a bunch of games in hand, Newcastle are right there too. You're competing with 4 teams at least. 3 teams. You're in a 4-team race for that 4th spot. And there's not a lot of reason to feel confident about Tottenham right now. That's the overlying kind of context of all of this. Is something had to go your way. If you're going to sacrifice the FA Cup, fine. I disagree, particularly in the case of Spurs. And they did, if somebody deserved to win that game, it was them, to be fair. But then you go lay an egg in the league, open this thing wide open in terms of open it back up in terms of the race for top 4. And then you got this game where, again, you don't create all that much. You got a chance here or there. But AC Milan were very comfortable for the most part. And then Christian Romero does what Christian Romero does and gets himself sent off for a needless second yellow that maybe could have been a red by itself. I am always very hesitant with players like Christian Romero. And I also understand that having that edge is a benefit. But that edge is only a benefit if it's a once every season or, every month or so it comes out and costs you. You can be worried about it as long as it doesn't actually turn into a problem most of the time. Christian Romero's track record recently, it's a problem almost every single game. You simply can't take that yellow in that case, in that situation. And, we got comments coming in. It's the history of the Tottenham. It's just hard to see this going any other way at this point because this is the identity and the culture of this club. And that was why I was so high on the Antonio Conte signing, to get to him in that part of this. I really believed he was somebody who could come in and change this. And obviously I was wrong. It's also why I thought Manchester United should have hired him. Obviously, I was wrong about that too. Because now what you have is a team playing an unattractive style, not being particularly good at it, and you have attached your identity as a club to managers who play this way, have big names, and haven't backed it up for your club. Now, okay, you take Nuno out of the big name part. But, right, Mourinho, Nuno, and Conte. That is not who Spurs are supposed to be. You have swung and missed on this, bring in the winner who knows how to get it done twice now. Obviously, Antonio Conte has no problem walking away from things. And if I'm Daniel Levy, if I'm Spurs, I'm not begging him to stay. It just hasn't worked. You have got to get back to who you are. Antonio Conte will not do that. The only way that this is all worth it is if it's working, if you're having success, and if it's getting you that trophy you so desperately crave. And none of that is happening right now. They're not any closer to winning a trophy. The closest they've come to winning a trophy? Well, okay, Mourinho came close, so I guess this isn't entirely accurate, but there is a guy out there who actually fits the identity of this club, who can take... I've talked about, a while back I did a kind of a state of the Big Six thing and said the right thing to do is to sell Harry Kane and start over because your ceiling just isn't high enough. I don't think they're going to do that. But if that actually happens, or if you're trying to whether it's selling Son or I don't know, if you're going to hit the reset button here, who better to lead that rebuild or reset, whatever you want to call it, than Pochettino? Outside of his previous history with the club, but just on it in terms of what he does best. He is not built to handle a club like PSG and to handle those superstars. He's built to get the most out of individual players. That's what he did so well at Spurs. That's what Spurs need, because this team is not reaching its potential. I still believe in this squad. I just don't believe in the manager's ability to maximize it. And I'm a Conte guy. It's not that I don't think Conte is a good manager. Conte is just not a good fit for this team. And that's okay. But I just don't see the rationale for keeping him, especially when Mauricio Pochettino is sitting there for you. Play out the season, hope he can get you into the top four again, although I'm not holding my breath, and then let Poch take it from there. If I'm Spurs, that's what I'm doing.